No, I have not been.
Might consider that, since if someone wanted to come back and find out what went on,
And read. That's a great point. And not have to watch. the
especially if they're
transcript.
hearing impaired.
That's a great point.
I had that conversation in Albany. I said, how would anyone know what went on? You know, if they're deaf,
No,
how would they know what went on in the meeting? Well, they can come listen to the web. If they can't hear,
they can't hear.
so.
Thank you. That's okay. Copy that.
Catching also makes robust meeting notes. If I just say so myself.
Yes.
Thank you, Waldo. That,
A whole pad.
Well, I hear that.
yes.
Dan
That might be
Dan said
anything.
it would have to change.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna slow down the meeting
Yeah,
notes.
that's okay.
Efficiency.
Yeah.
All right.
Love it. Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to this March 12th meeting of the Human Rights Commission. I'm Joaquin, and I'm the chair of the commission, and I welcome all tonight. So guests included, especially. We're gonna go ahead and do introductions. So the way we do that here is we go around the room and then online, introduce ourselves, who we are, our affiliation with the commission, if we have one, and the ward in which we reside. So, Vice Chair, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Hello, everybody. My name is Robert Marshall. I live in Ward 2 and I'm the Vice Chair of the Human Rights Commission.
My name is Robert Dowd. I'm a sergeant with the police department and the police department's liaison for the Human Rights Commission.
Good evening. I'm Krishna Namburi. I'm the interim city manager in the city of Salem.
I'm Hope Strayer. I am the youth commissioner of the Human Rights Commission.
Lance Deedy, I'm a lieutenant.
Christina Ballard, I'm the commissioner from Ward 7.
I'm Jeffrey Evans, Commissioner from Ward 6 and the newly abused president of Barrier Free Oregon.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
On the incorporation of Barrier
More
Free
like
Oregon.
condolences. You got a lot to do.
Fair. I understand that.
If anyone wants to join, let me know.
My name is Gretchen Bennett. I'm on the staff team. I'm the staff liaison and I use she, her pronouns.
Thank you. Let's start with you, Kelsey. Online.
Sorry, my cat was blocking the mute button. It was a lot. Hi, everyone. My name is Kelsey. I use she, her pronouns, and I am a commissioner here on the HRC. And I will pass to Kira.
Everybody, I am Kira Pressey. I use she, her pronouns. I am a commissioner in Ward 5. I will popcorn to Moss.
Hi all, I am Ilana or Moss, and I use they, them pronouns. I am a member of this commission and so excited to be here, and I will pass it to Judy.
Hi, I'm Judy McCord. I'm a commissioner with Ward 6 and I use she, her pronouns. I will pass it to Kirsty.
Hi everyone, sorry I'm having camera difficulties, but I'm Kirsty Urdich. I'm a member of this commission from Ward 5, I believe.
Thank you. I'd like to take a moment to welcome interim city manager Krishna Namburi to the commission, who I believe is going around and doing a talk around the livability levy upcoming in May. So I'll give you the floor and
Thank you.
welcome
We
you to
have
the
a
commission.
presentation. So Gretchen, thank you for uploading that.
You're welcome.
We can put that in presentation.
Yeah, that's what I was just trying to remember how to do. You go to slideshow.
At the bottom,
Oh,
like, yeah, right there.
To your left, yeah,
Yeah.
right there.
Thank you.
Sweet. You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
And I'll try to keep moving these around so they're not in the way.
Yeah, you can go to the next slide. So just wanted to kind of say thank you for having me here tonight. And I'm here to talk about the livability levy. The council referred back to May 20th ballot. So I'll give more details about what that consists of. Next slide. Thank you. Sorry that I'm starting with the challenge, but right now the city general fund has $13.8 million budget deficit. And we have over the years, before kind of I start with that, I just have to say that I have been with the city for 25 years. And in that 25 years, I served as department head for like 10 plus. And then I have been in the deputy city manager role for like 3 years, so it's close to 14, 15 years in the leadership team. So So over the years, we have, after making staff reductions and efficiencies and then we did work with the forecast review team to kind of look into our forecast. And then we did work with city efficiency committee to kind of look into possible efficiencies that might exist for the city. Even after all of that, the city still has like a $13.8 million budget deficit. The two major reasons that are contributing to that. One is the statewide limits on property taxes, and the second one is inflation, as we all are experiencing, raising costs. So that kind of is what is contributing to that $13.8 million deficit. Just to give a different number, the city general fund is $190 million, and so this is close to like 8% of the deficit. Thank you, Gretchen.
It didn't work. Thank you.
It did the same thing to me yesterday, and then people thought it was lack of my technical.
A minute ago, but how did you get it?
So I don't think that's the issue.
Right, this worked. So just
there you
rolling
go.
this down worked, okay.
So I would like to talk about like what has, and this question comes to us quite a bit, what has been done to cut costs so far? The time that I have been part of the leadership team, every year the city was having some kind of a budget challenge, right? So this is not a new thing. Every year we made adjustments to make sure that we are not kind of below the ending fund balance. I'm not going to talk about what we have done before 24. There's kind of more information on the city's website that talks about the reductions that we have made over the years. But just between fiscal year 24 and 25, we have cut close to $8.1 million. And that kind of includes police, fire, general fund departments. A lot of programs have been kind of looked into, and we have eliminated some positions. So that's kind of the $8.1 million budget deficit. I'm very appreciative of the work that the forecast review team has done. They looked into our 5-year forecasting. We had, when we went to the team to kind of look into how we are forecasting our budget, there was $17.7 million budget deficit. The review team made a couple of assumptions or a couple of suggestions. The first one is for the city to be more aggressive about the revenue that we are collecting through property taxes with the new development. And so that was taken into consideration. And the second piece of it is to be more accurate about the savings from salaries and vacancies and the other materials and services. So with both those assumptions or corrections, I have to say, that dropped from 17.7 to 13.8. Those are aggressive assumptions, but we are kind of more than happy to kind of move forward with that and hoping the revenue will continue to come the way that we are projecting it to be. The other work that the City Efficiency Committee has done, and I'll talk about that in a minute in the next slide, but it basically looked into all of the city general fund departments like police, fire, the other general services to see are there any opportunities for efficiencies for cost savings. Thanks, Greg. Thank you, Gretchen. Next slide. So these are the 4 findings from the City Efficiency Committee. These are their words. No inordinate waste. And Salem operates with fewer resources than other cities. Just kind of as an example, City of Eugene, the general fund, they collect $54 million more than the city of Salem does. If you look into the resources, there was a lot of studies done about the police and fire and the other internal services. Salem does operate with fewer resources than the peer cities. So that's kind of the fact based on the information. Opportunities, and they also kind of found some opportunities for efficiencies, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And the fourth point was external factors do limit flexibility, and that kind of, of course, the revenue with the measure 5 and 50, we are limited about how much we can collect. The other piece that they did kind of find it with the PERS, and this is kind of has increased significantly over the years, and we were hit with like a 30% increase this year. And just to kind of talk about it a little bit, and this is, I know there's a lot about it in the news. This is not to say that the City of Salem employees are receiving more retirement benefits. That's kind of not what's kind of happening. The PERS system, they invest their money into the market and whatever they do based on how their investments are doing, and knowing that they have to pay for the retirees, they adjust the rate. And a lot of it is on the employer. And that's kind of what really contributed to like a major increase for us on the PERS. And again, the dollar amount we have to pay to the PERS system, and not necessarily this is like the employees are receiving 30% more retirement benefits. That's not the case. So,
Krishna, do you want questions along the way or at the end?
Along the way is fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, we're discussing external factors?
Yeah.
What consideration was given to likely expenditures to comply with the Americans with Disabilities Act? Because the city's in gross violation.
So the work done by the City Efficiency Committee, and thank you for the question. This like they met for 5 times with an hour and a half each. So it was kind of really done at a very high level. They did not look into the details. They didn't get into the, it was really high level overview. So I don't think they have looked into,
Because that's a major problem, and it cost the city of Sacramento close to $100 million in the last 22 years.
Thank you. So go ahead.
That's good. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So the City Efficiency Committee recommendations, these are the 5 recommendations that they made, and I'll talk more about it, but basically to increase collaboration with other agencies, leveraging audits, exploring alternate service delivery, reducing employee overtime, and use of AI. If you go to the next slide.
Sure.
Gretchen. And sorry that I'm kind of going through this. I just want to be respectful for everyone's time. So from the recommendation that the City Efficiency Committee made, there were like 5 of them. And I'm going to talk about the one on the left that's seeking efficiencies. What the leadership team and myself, we kind of looked into all 5 and said, let's pick the ones that are actually can be implemented right away. And one of so these are the 3 pieces that we are working on it, reducing overtime for fire and police. And I'll talk about that in a minute, implementing AI solutions and continue efficiency audits. With the overtime for fire and police, I do want to kind of take a minute to talk about, there is a lot about overtime in the news, but the reason for the overtime for public safety, because we have to meet minimal staffing. And when we receive requests for service, especially on the public safety side of it, we are required to kind of attend to those, to serve the community. And there is a minimal staffing that we have to maintain on both sides. That is kind of where the overtime is going. Being said that, the Efficiency Committee did talk about currently the police and fire have vacancies, and to be more aggressive in recruiting for those positions. And that could help us to reduce overtime. And again, the goal here is to reduce the overall cost of operations, but recruiting attrition, there is a natural attrition that happens over the years, but also being very aggressive about not having too many vacancies might help us with overtime, and we don't know what that sweet spot is, but we need to be doing more further analysis on fire and police overtime. But they did talk about making sure the vacancies get filled, and reducing positions and leaving vacancies unfilled is actually causing more on the overtime side of it. So the other piece that I do want to kind of acknowledge, I'm very appreciative, and we are very appreciative of the fact that the fire and the police staff are willing to kind of do that over time. It is not that the employees, everybody is looking for the work-life balance. It is a lot of burden on the public safety, especially when they're kind of working that many hours. So we have a need to kind of find that balance for them for both fire and police. And I just want to kind of appreciate the fact that we have some amazing staff and that want to serve this community. The second piece of it is the implementing AI solutions. This is not to replace, I know people always talk about this, AI. To me, I don't look at AI as replacing humans. These are the solutions to reduce the cost of operations. The city of Salem workforce is the workload. There is a lot of people struggle for workload. Work-life balance, I'm looking at Gretchen, we're always here, right? So finding those AI solutions to help with the employee workload, but also in the future, as the city is growing and the needs are growing, just to kind of avoid adding more positions, and how do we kind of find that balance? And so that's kind of what we are exploring, and I'm very impressed. I'm very fortunate that I get to work with the IT staff, and we have made significant progress in this area without spending money on it, because we have programming staff that are extremely good at finding solutions, and of course the staff time. But so we're kind of making progress on that. Continuing efficiency audits. One of this one is personally, I'm very appreciative of the fact that they made this recommendation. Is as we are continuing efficiency audits, the efficiency committee did make a recommendation that the city has to take some accountability in implementing the recommendations that these audits are saying. It's not to just to kind of put it on the shelf and kind of move forward. It does take a certain discipline and the resources, because that is what is going to give you some cost savings. So we do have, we just finished the city manager's audit, and we do have the risk management audit, and the IT audit is in the books. And so we'll continue doing that work. I'll kind of focus on the making cuts piece of it. And so these are the effective 2 weeks ago. These are the 7 measures that we put in place. And every time I look at it, I know the pain. I know how much this impacts the staff, but this is something that we are in financial crisis. The idea here is let's look into what are the immediate cuts that we can make, or the stopgap measures that we can put in place fiscal year 25 right now for some cost savings. So we talked about no new travel, no non-mandatory training. No overtime for non-public safety, especially, even if you don't have to meet the minimal staffing. And so I don't want to kind of read through the list, but there's a lot there. No new consultants, software technology, reduced supplies. With the positions left open, this is what the department heads are working on. We're looking at all of the vacancies. What vacancies must be filled? To me, public safety needs to be filled, because that has that connection with overtime. So we kind of need to move forward with that. What positions can be frozen? What positions can be eliminated? So that is the exercise that we are going through for fiscal year 25. Again, this is not a permanent solution. This is like a really temporary to have those cost savings for fiscal year 25. We are also looking into what if we put these measures for fiscal year 26, and maybe not all of them, some of them, to see what that number looks like. And so those are the cost savings moving forward. And again, this is a lot with already overworked employees, but because of the situation that we are in right now, we need to continue to do whatever we can to reduce that budget deficit. I personally don't think it is fair to put the entire burden on the community. We have to do our part. So that's kind of what we are trying to do here. And I'm hoping that we have some cost savings to kind of help with the budget deficit. So thank you, Gretchen. What happens without the levy? This is a livability levy. And of course, there are going to be significant reductions to parks and recreation, library, and youth services, youth and senior services. And we'll talk about why the city council decided to go with the community services levy versus public safety levy in a minute. Gretchen, if you can go to the next. Let's talk about what this investment is. This is, and I want to acknowledge that this is a lot to ask the community, but this is kind of what it costs to kind of maintain these services. 98 cents per thousand assessed property value. And for an average homeowner, it is like $220 per year. And it's going to generate $14 million. And the $14 million is what is going to give you those three services. And so with that, Gretchen, if you can go to the next slide. So what the livability levy does, and of course, we talked about it funds parks and recreation, libraries, senior and youth programs. This is going to be a dedicated fund. There's going to be an oversight and accountability. So it's going to be monitored by an oversight committee. So that's kind of what it funds. This also allows us, and I want to kind of highlight that, and we'll talk about why the council decided to go with the livability levy instead of public safety. This model also preserves and prioritizes police and fire. And I'll talk about that in a minute on why. Thank you. Why this matters now. So part of it is like, and I want to kind of acknowledge that it is a very, it's challenging for to kind of navigate through this right now. This is kind of feels like very much last minute, right? Because we are supposed to, we're going to propose a balanced budget. We have to propose a balanced budget in April, and then we have to go without levy because we don't have the dollar amount to kind of balance the budget. And that will include significant reduction to services. But at the same time, we are going to levy in May 20th. If the levy passes, we're going to come back on May 28th. I don't remember the exact date, but we're going to come back. The budget committee is going to reconvene and going to pass a different budget, right? So we're kind of going kind of in parallel. It does feel, it is kind of a little bit rough. The immediate need is that, like, we have to, without additional revenue, we have to cut services next year. That's kind of where we are at. And this gives us a 5-year levy. It gives us some time to develop a sustainable funding solution because the city has a budget deficit. And one piece that I'm not saying that you guys are asking the question, but this is something that has, why are we doing this without that proper planning, right? I completely agree. And I think the people that have worked with me, whether it is my personal life and professional life, to me, I think we need to kind of move. It's important for me that we have to have a plan, right? We should not be in this situation again where we are talking about the May 20th versus April, like without the levy, we are moving forward. There are, significant reductions we have to make. I want to acknowledge it. It is difficult for staff too. It is extremely, and I would, for them to go through that process. And that is one thing that keeps me awake in the night. It's a tough process. Like you are talking about like 8 weeks, not knowing whether the levy is going to pass or not. And these are people's livelihood, and it is tough. But this, with the current model, it gives us the plan to develop a sustainable funding solution. So with that, Gretchen, if you want to go to the next slide, and I'll take your question after the next slide, if that's okay.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. And so this is kind of where it really comes down to. This is the 5-year forecast, right? So the question, like I'll explain this sheet first, and then I'll talk about why livability levy instead of public safety levy. So if you look at the top green bar, it talks about the local option levy, the potential local option levy. This levy, if passes, is going to generate $14 million in 2026, 14.61 in 27, and so on. By separating so with that levy potential, what it does is the general fund gets kind of freed up of that $14 million, right? So even with that levy, even if levy passes, you can see that at the bottom, that the forecast does not look that great, right? So this is like, we still have a budget deficit for the next 5 years. But what it also kind of allows us to do when looking at the next 5 years, there are other revenue options that the city is aggressively seeking, like, we're kind of continue to work on. One is the capital district. This is kind of similar to the payment in lieu of taxes. So that's a capital district is something that we are pursuing. There are possibility or some opportunities to close some of the URAs, and that could generate some money there. We are also looking at other revenue streams, because when the revenue task force met last year, they actually gave a recommendation to the council about, hey, these are the revenues that you should go after for a sustainable model, right? Like, so they're like 3 or 4 that actually there's like 5 different revenues. And so the idea here is for the next 5 years, let's look at those other revenue sources, and that should be kind of fed into that deficit, right? To kind of fix the deficit. The way I'm personally looking at it is, I don't think just the revenue is going to help with this situation. I think we need to continue to look for those efficiencies. We need to continue to look for those cost savings. And the combination of that and the additional revenue is what has to kind of help with that budget deficit. Now, the piece that I wanted to kind of, why did the council go for a livability levy instead of public safety? If you look at the local option levy, like the numbers, 14, 14.61, 15.25. Number one, the revenue is limited there. You're talking about 14 point, and the growth is limited too. And the public safety needs are very high in the city right now. And we have been, as we did the community survey, the council, the budget committee, consistently, everybody has rated it from a priority perspective. Public safety is number one. When public safety is number one, putting public safety with a fire and police under 5-year levy is basically you're putting public safety at risk, because you're limited for the 5-year and then you have to go for it again. Number two, like you can see, the growth is like the revenue is limited, and it is difficult to put public safety with a levy, knowing that the needs are much higher than the growth that you can see there. So those are the kind of the two things. And because public safety is number one priority for pretty much like consistently from the data that we have collected, going with this model really kind of gives that separation between the community services versus now the general fund. Majority of the general fund is going to be focused on public safety. The other piece, a lot of times the counselors kind of deal with it. And I know, again, I'm not saying which service is more priority. That's not what I'm saying. But the model that we have is when you have all the community services departments and the public safety under the same pool, a lot of times for the council, as they're making decisions, they're prioritizing 2 different services. It is a lot of times it's about, is it the splash pads versus like something else on the public safety. Now this model gives an opportunity for the council to look into, let's look into the parks and the libraries and the other services, and then kind of prioritize in the same playing field. But also the same thing on the public safety, it is the same thing. You're prioritizing within that fund model, right? So that's kind of another separation that they could see. The piece that I do want to kind of end with, and one of the things that this is a challenging place to be in, and I really hope that we figure out a long-term funding solution. But this is my personal statement, and one thing that I've always seen it as over the years, like we are in this like vicious cycle, right? Like there's a budget challenge, there are needs, and there's a lot of other areas that we have to serve. But just like it's extremely difficult to meet the community needs with the way that we are structured. I think at some point, it's important that we break the cycle. And we have to be strategic and we have to be smart about it. And this model gives us an opportunity to break the cycle and kind of have the right funding models so that the prioritization is done correctly. And then also it gives us a path forward, understanding that we have to start looking into other revenues immediately, right? Because this is a lot of ask from the community. Everybody, I don't think any one of us, I think all of us agree that everybody is trying to meet ends needs, and the just the economy right now, and it's difficult for people to kind of pay anything more. So it is not fair to put the deficit that we are looking at to ask the community to take the burden. It is not the right thing. But this model is like, I think the council went with like a 98 cents, which is like the lower number. It does give us just enough to protect those services, but also preserving and protecting public safety with that, right? And then also some way to kind of move forward for the next 5 years with other revenue measures. So with that, next slide, and I can take questions. And yeah, so this is, to me, I think we let's invest in Salem's future together. This is a lot of ask, and I know that. And I'm also kind of, we hope that on May 21st that we get to see this levy passing, but this is completely up to the community. And whatever the decision is, we're going to honor that and we're going to move forward. So we do have one more slide, and there is a QR code for if you want to know more about this levy and some of the, that will take you to the City of Salem website, and I should be able to see that. So thank you.
Thank you, Krishna, for your very informative presentation and an important moment in our city's history. So I'm going to open it up to the commission if anybody has questions of our interim city manager. Go ahead, Kira.
I have so many questions, so I'll try to keep it to a minimum. So have we thought, or has it, and you might not have answers for these, and that's totally okay. I really appreciated your presentation, so thank you so much. Has the city thought about reform instead of kind of slapping a Band-Aid on a problem? And when I say reform, because you listed out some of the recommendations, but none of those were reforms for police or fire. Like, for instance, we respond with an ALS every single time. Like, even if someone stubbed their toe, we respond with ALS, which is kind of pointless. And I know that Oregon doesn't exactly move to a two-tiered system yet, a tiered response system. But is that in the conversation at all? Did that make sense?
I'm not, yeah, so sorry, I don't have the complete details, but I don't think that has been in the conversations. But as far as what we respond to, I'm not sure that you can answer that question.
No, that's totally okay. But is reform a topic of conversation in the systems? Or is it just...
Yeah, I haven't heard it so far, but I can kind of, I don't know if it happened before, but so far I haven't heard it, so thank you.
If I may offer a quick translation, Kara, do you mean like looking at how to do business differently by reform?
Yeah, so for instance, like with EMS, again, they respond with 2 paramedics to every call, or 1 paramedic. There just has to be a paramedic on a call, instead of responding with like BLS, which is an EMT. And it saves resources for when they're actually needed. And it can also decrease cost because we don't pay EMTs the same thing we pay paramedics. And then as far as like with police, like have we thought about doing community-based interventions to save some of the load that's on the police department? So just thoughts.
Yeah, thank you. I think we can get back to you on that. I don't have an answer to that today, so sorry about that.
No, that's totally okay. Thank you. I will save my other questions for later.
I'm gonna make it in terms of observation, correct me if I'm wrong. But the priorities that you've outlined in these slides have not taken into account at all the needs of 28.7% of our population. Because the sidewalks are dangerous. The parks are inaccessible, and I'm assuming that the levy is not going to be paying to make parks accessible. And so, you know, you've got 28.7% of the population that is going to be a permanent underclass in Salem. And what I'm picking up from people in the community is you might see some civil disobedience as a result. You've got housing, 60% was your number, Joaquin, of the homeless or people with disabilities. And there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is your planning department or your planning director doesn't seem to think that the city has a role in ensuring that there's adequate housing for people with disabilities. Essentially what this levy is saying is, well, these things matter more than you. And yes, it puts them to the 50+ center, but it's not making the community more livable for that population. And so my question is, when? Because this is what we always hear. We're the only group whose civil rights is subjected to a cost-benefit analysis. And this is what we hear. And we're going to be addressing a complaint under complaints where that's essentially what we're hearing. Oh, we don't have the money. We don't have the money. Don't have the money. Money gets spent. But it doesn't get spent where we think it needs to be spent. And so leading into that too is the Capital District. What's the status of that? Because obviously the city's not going to be able to come up with the money. So that means that the legislature is going to have to do that. And is that part of the equation? Are they being approached for only enough to get the city by, or to get the city serving unmet needs?
Yeah, I agree. So there are, you have some great points, right? Like, so there are so many needs, and especially like the ones that you're talking about. Going back, and I hope at some point we have enough funding to be able to kind of serve and take care of all the needs, right? But at this point, to me, I'm kind of looking at it as one step at a time, right? So this is kind of the first step to kind of, let's kind of look for that 14 million so that we can just kind of breathe a little bit on this. But I agree that the needs are high. And as far as the capital district, I personally don't think, and I don't think we're going to get money to meet all of our needs, right? I don't know what that dollar amount is. That is still kind of, the work is still going on. And I'm hoping that we get at least some to be able to kind of move forward. When I look at that budget deficit, it is like, it does not look good. The red does not look good. At some point, without additional funding or revenue, the city has to stop operating. Right, so we are hoping that we get some, and I honestly don't know what the dollar amount is, so we just have to kind of wait and see.
So to build on one of Jeffrey's questions, Krishna, you talked about hearing from the community around prioritization. Can you talk to us a little bit about how the community is engaged the public to identify those areas of priority?
Yeah, so what I think, sorry, I apologize not remembering those dates, but last year we did conduct like several surveys from the community about and looking at what are the public safety or the library services. And so I think the survey has given the list of like whatever the services the city is providing, and from that list, can you prioritize what is the most important, like what, right? I think there was also questions about other pieces that we engaged with. Forgot the name of the company, but HRH we engaged with a third party to do the survey. I think I don't know what the poll number was, but they did kind of random selection of people to get that information. So that was kind of one part. The second piece of it is the same when the revenue task force met to talk about possible revenue options. There was a survey that was conducted from the revenue task force, and we did the same for budget committee, and we did the same thing for council and the different parties to kind of say the same thing. Can you prioritize what is important? So that's kind of the exercise the city has gone through. And when it comes to the engagement, did we engage the entire community? Maybe not, right? So we kind of have to do a sample. And again, that kind of comes down to how much can we afford to pay? I mean, honestly, that's kind of what the conversation was. With the dollar amount that we had, we had to go with the smaller pool.
Thank you. Judy, your hand was up. Go ahead.
So first of all, my internet's a little unstable, so forgive me if I freeze. I was a City of Salem employee in 2009, and my position was eliminated due to similar budget cuts. So I can attest to how difficult this is for city employees. It was months of a lot of stress. And so, Christian, I really thank you for your presentation and for stepping up for being the interim city manager. That must be very difficult. And I just want to take a moment to thank the city employees for their service to the city and recognize that this is very difficult. And I know that you have taken a lot of steps to look into this and how to solve the problem.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do want to kind of acknowledge, this is something that pains me a lot, just to kind of be able to looking at one is the needs of the community and the different stakeholders that we have to serve and not able to meet the need. The second piece of it is, and I also kind of oversaw all of the internal services departments, and so one of the department was HR, so I kind of got an opportunity to kind of know a lot of employees over the years, and every city employee want to do a better job and want to serve the community. We are here because there's a lot of passion for the work that we do, right? And I just want to take a minute to kind of acknowledge this is when I came to the city 25 years ago, I came from a private consulting firm. I was working for Pricewaterhouse, came here as a temporary, kind of work for 2 years, and I wanted to go back to consulting. And two or 3 years into it, my perception about public employees was very different prior to that. I was like anybody else, and I thought the public employees are here to 8 to 5, collect retirement, and they want to kind of go, right? And I honestly experienced something very different. And the reason why I stayed is people that kind of work here. These are some of my city of employees that are here. That was my reason to work, because there is a very different level of purpose and passion that they bring to what it is. And it's just not the work ethic, but this is not where to retire or to make money. There is a genuine purpose in life to serve others, to serve this community. And it is kind of has been a very rewarding experience. Even after 25 years, I chose to stay with the city just for that reason, right? My perception about public service has changed after 2 years. So, and I know how hard everybody works, and it's also difficult to, and also they want to serve the community, but the funding is limited. So we are also kind of facing the challenge, right? So I just kind of want to take a minute to acknowledge that we have extraordinary employees and staffing in the city, and I'm very privileged and honored to work with people like that. And that's kind of one of my biggest personal accomplishments being with the city, is to get to know the competent staff that we have.
Understatement of the year. Jeffrey. And then we'll go back to you, Kira.
No, I'll leave it at that. I'd like to be able to sit down with you at some point.
Kira.
Awesome. Okay, last one, I promise. With the implementation of AI being one of the recommendations, is there any discussion regarding its potential negative impact on the environment?
No, we have, so are you talking about from a pure, like a mining perspective? And I don't know what you.
That and like increased energy consumption, electronic waste, data storage and processing, just, yeah.
Yeah, so, I mean, we haven't talked about that. And also, from AIs, we are not, how do I say it? Like, so there are solutions that are being created and then we are kind of using that on the technical side of it, but we haven't evaluated anything of that sort. So thank you for bringing it up.
Thank you.
Maz?
So if if there were something that we could okay. Sorry, it's been a long day. Let me restart. Is this meant to be purely informational, or is there an ask here of something that you're hoping? Okay, no, just purely informational.
Well, I'm just here to share information about, hey, this is going on the ballot, and just wanted to kind of educate the community about where we are at, with the budget and the process that we are going through. So we are the team, the city of Salem, we are all trying to kind of be more involved with the community and engage the community. My goal is to continue to come to these meetings and once in a while, and then I want to be kind of part of that. And I've been talking to a lot of neighborhood associations, and this is kind of more like a personal thing for me. For me, it's not about coming to these meetings for an ask, right? It is for me also an opportunity to come and get to know you guys and learn about the process. So that's kind of why I'm here. But also we're going to the May ballot, and I thought this is an opportunity to come and talk about it.
Got it. I appreciate that. And also wonder if we would be able to host a meeting like this. Like, I know this is a public meeting, but have more exposure around it to host another informational that would focus on this, because I do think that there's a lot of people who don't understand why this is happening and don't understand the ways that it would benefit the community.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. So from the city staff, we're going to file for ballot, I think on March 18th. The city staff can't come and talk about this after 18th, so we have a deadline. But I know the mayor and the council, the councilors are, and then there's a PAC, there is a coalition that has been formed, a lot of energy from parks, and I'm sorry that I forgot to mention that, but there's a lot of energy from Parks, Library, and Center 50+, and so there is a PAC that already has been formed. So I think there is an opportunity for the PAC and the council to come and talk to you guys about it, but I'm more than happy to attend that meeting just to be kind of there, but I cannot, other than giving facts, I can't talk about it after March 18th, and the city staff cannot either, so. But thank you for the suggestion, though. We'll take whatever the opportunity to educate the community, so thank you.
But if what Krista shared today speaks to you, we all have our communities, and in our personal capacity, we can do a lot of good. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Any final questions? I also be mindful of both Krishna's time and our agenda today. Well, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I very much appreciate it.
Any public comment?
None received.
Anyone in the room? I don't think anyone is here. Is not a welcome, Councilor Brown. Good to see you.
Greetings, everyone.
You just missed an informative presentation, but I'm sure you're well versed.
Oh, no, trust me. I was watching it. I was on the YouTube side.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Any public comment, Councilor Brown? Okay.
No comment.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Plessy. Seconded by Commissioner Schreier. All in favor, please indicate the vote by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. Action items. Sergeant Dowd. think you're up.
Yes. On March 1st in Northeast Salem, there was a report of harassment on the basis of race. The victim, who was a Hispanic female, confronted a group of people about believing that they had stolen or were in possession of the victim's cell phone. One of the suspects began using racial slurs toward the victim and spit directly in the victim's face. The suspects fled before police arrived. The victim ultimately located their phone in a nearby trash bag. Officers were unable to locate the suspect after checking the area on that one. And then on the 3rd of March, also in Northeast Salem, there was an assault that occurred. The victim reported that 2 suspects had accused the victim of an indecent exposure for a previous incident. They were looking for the perpetrator of this indecent exposure incident and came across the victim. And when the victim denied any knowledge or involvement, one of the suspects punched and kicked the victim using racial slurs and telling the victim that they did not belong here. The suspects fled the area. Officers checked the area, did not locate the suspects, and then after contacting the victim did not want to file charges if the suspects were ultimately located. And so those are the 2. We had a big gap, and I don't know what the reason for the gap was, but we had the last report had been on February 9th, and then there were no bias reports until these ones on the 1st and 3rd. And so I've checked the software. There were no incidents that were not captured. So I just found it rather odd that we went almost a month without any bias incidents or bias crimes.
Any questions for the sergeant? Okay, thank you for your report.
You bet.
Gretchen, any consensus relations?
Yes, I have 2 to bring to your attention, and both relate to people with disabilities and accommodations complaints. One is a complaint regarding the lack of accessibility of electronic vehicle charging stations that have been installed in Salem by a utility, maybe approximately 20 of these, and that they aren't accessible. They're not accessible to people with disabilities. And in fact, one is in front of someone's home who has a mobility disability, I understand.
Yeah.
So the city, we don't have an answer yet. The Public Works Department is working with the utility, and there's 2 other participating jurisdictions in the same situation, Gresham and Milwaukee, and they're working towards a resolution for accessibility, but we don't have that answer yet, but we've got that one.
Can I give a little bit more in depth since I'm the one that filed the complaint?
You'd be welcome, that's fine with me.
Yeah, we had a presentation at NESCA about this great program between Public Works and PGE of having mobile electric vehicle charging stations. That essentially, you go up to the scanner, you pay your money, the wand drops down from the utility pole, you plug it in. The problem is that none of those locations are going to be accessible. And the reason I essentially, with respect to my questions, I was told that, well, if there's a disabled parking space there, well, then that's not a problem. Problem is, in residential areas, there are no disabled parking stations or spaces on those streets. And so the person giving the presentation maintained that they were compliant. Does someone in a wheelchair cannot get up onto the sidewalk to be able to control or get a hold of the wand? And the same thing we hear over and over and over. Well, we can't make these places accessible. We don't have the money. this is just one more example of the city being tone deaf to the needs of people with disabilities. And essentially what I heard was, well, we comply with the ADA. I've been at this 50 years. It does not comply with the ADA. And that's the first thing out of a department head's mouth is, oh yeah, we comply with the ADA. No, you don't. And this is just another example of that. So
Thank you for elaborating.
And then I have a second one. We had a request made, or really a complaint made about the lack of improvement to sidewalks in front of an event venue that's downtown. And staff from 2 different departments are currently re-looking at the plans and the resources to see if they can't redirect some energy there to try to improve the sidewalk and the accessibility in front of the event venue. We understand the event venue hosts and welcomes people with disabilities, but of course any event venue would, but they're based on the complaint trying to see what they can do to improve that particular location. They're having a meeting near the end of the month, but there's no decisions yet, but they're working on it. And those are the 2 that I brought today.
Any questions for either Gretchen or Jeffrey? I do. So
Yeah.
what role, utilities, what role does PGE have in addressing the sort of concerns that you just?
well, it's their program, but it's being facilitated by City Public Works.
Our city.
Yes, and so it's kind of like a joint program. And again, I expect PGE to not really give a rip. But I do expect the city to take into account, and this is a recurring theme on the survey on parking downtown without one question on ADA or, disabled parking, whatever. And so I think next day, someone from Public Works was in your office.
Yes,
Yes.
yes,
So-
yes, thank you.
So I guess I was enough of a difficult person, I'm cleaning it up for the video, that they thought maybe they should get on it.
So you mentioned also, forgive me, Gresham and
Milwaukee.
Milwaukee, thank you.
Mhm.
How are they responding as other local governments? They're not? Okay.
Well, we're working with them. It's a broad, we're taking the conversation as part of a broader effort to bring this complaint and possible solution to all of the participating jurisdictions.
And to make it worse, they did this in front of one woman's house who is disabled.
Yeah, that's what Gretchen mentioned.
And she's not allowed to now park in front of her house because it would block the charging station. And again, this is the tone deafness. It's just, well, we're gonna do engineers. I've got a daughter who's an engineer, so engineers, they deal with straight lines, and if it happens to go through somebody's liver, they're not worried about it.
I know a few engineers who would probably take issue with that characterization, but I appreciate the point.
I can count them on one hand.
But I think it's something we should pay close attention to.
Yes, you
and
bet.
always, though it can be slow, celebrate when intergovernmental cooperation happens. I'm glad that there are different cities working together on that. Though unfortunately happening with those things. Next is us.
Yeah.
So we wanted to bring back to the commission this conversation around citizenship, sanctuary, and Chapter 97. So Gretchen is doing her best to. Can folks online see this document?
Yes.
Online.
Yes.
Can they? I can't see
Yes.
that.
Giving thumbs up.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yes.
Some hard copies if anybody.
Um,
can make us-
Mark the agenda, please.
Yes.
So as you can recall, this has been a conversation for quite a while now around the feedback that we got in the community belonging survey as it appeared to us last year. So we've been chewing on this now for 6 months or so, all coming up on a year, around how prohibitive status can be for reporting bias crimes or incidences when they occur to people in the community. Put another way, there's anxiety around, is my status gonna get me in trouble, and should I or should I not report things when they happen to me in the community? And we noted, I think folks saw our statement from last week.
Sent it out.
That drew people's attention to Chief Womack's statement from last month and clarifying SPD's role or lack of a role in terms of aiding immigration customs enforcement agents or other federal immigration agents in their execution of federal law and policy. In other words, that there's a policy of non-cooperation that SPD has vis-a-vis immigration here for folks in Salem, as well as statewide. And we've gotten feedback from our legal, we've gotten feedback from our legal department here at the city that there are concerns around what perception there might be on the part of community members around what the city can or cannot do if we move forward as we'd originally discussed here at the commission. So originally we had talked about getting a bunch of experts and city staff together and having a forum. And as it was framed at that time, we got feedback from the city manager, the city attorney's office that might create the impression that the city has some power it does not have in facilitating immigration cases for folks who have who are undocumented here in the community. And so we were invited to clarify our scope and intention of any public engagement that we might be facilitating as a commission. And in the second paragraph under next steps or following next steps, you can see that clarification, which I think I'll read out loud. It says the Human Rights Commission seeks to 1, clarify recent policy implications for undocumented people in Oregon, 2, promote awareness, understanding, and help make resources or remedies available to local communities, and 3, identify any role the commission might play moving forward, given the limited role city governments play in this area of public life. And so as we think about having this conversation, one that we've been thinking about having for a while and having kind of put on pause with the new administration since January, these are the 3 areas around which we'd like to organize and to really think consciously about in terms of our aims for that public engagement. So in practice, what we hope to do remains the same, which is a la Robert's homelessness town hall, having a public forum where folks in the community can gather and learn from expert people around where we stand in terms of what policies are in place or not in place, what resources are or are not available to folks, and just learning how they can either get more involved and or seek support here locally. And so the partners are very similar to what you've seen in previous iterations of this document: Mano Legal Aid, Salem for Refugees, though we actually may have been able to discuss that.
Yeah.
There's some capacity issues. Jenny's Legal Organization, OLC. It originally had said city staff, again, incorporating the city attorney's feedback. We've changed that to SPD, given they've been pretty explicit about that. Thank you in advance. Fair Housing Council of Oregon, a faculty member at Willamette, the Immigration Law Clinic also at Willamette, as well as the Farm Workers Union, Bekun. Go ahead and would you feel mine?
Of course.
The format, again, this is reminiscent of the forum that we had last fall for houselessness in the community. And we've kind of peppered the document with some questions that we'd like to have addressed in the course of that conversation. We're looking at a 90-minute public forum where there's a facilitated conversation by the HRC and the invited guests. Audience members can listen to that again for 90 minutes and then engage in the question and answer period following that discussion. So I see Jeffrey's hand. I'll pause here to get either feedback or field questions that any of you are concerned with that matter, any of you may have. Please.
I think in light of recent events nationally, we should consider expanding this to include legal permanent residents in our community because there are a lot of them that are terrified that if they have a negative, and at least I've spoken with a number, and they're a little concerned that if they involve themselves in any protests, which is their right under law, that if for some reason they have a police contact, that could then end up having ICE knocking their door down and dragging them off and sending them down to Venezuela or El Salvador or someplace.
Or Louisiana, in the case of the gentleman, I think you're thinking about.
No, I'm thinking about they're building a larger camp in Gitmo.
Well, I think, I don't want to speak for the commission, but I wonder, Jeffrey, if that isn't already in the scope of what we're talking about. Again, I want to be very explicit, the commission is not at this time, and likely won't be, in the business of telling people what to do or giving them knowledge or direction so much as convening people who would be otherwise expert and could provide resources and services to folks. We are not a service provider in this area. It's not within our domain as a city. But if someone who was a permanent resident had those questions and came to this forum, it'd be my hope that they could get questions addressed by someone who was in a position to address those questions. Go ahead, Coach.
Thank you. I was thinking about one slight caveat, going back to the grounding reason for your interest in this conversation, which is people are saying they're reluctant to report bias incidents. I don't think there's any issue with the city saying, if you walk through the mayor's office and talk to me about the discrimination you're experiencing because you can't access this parking space or this grocery store, I certainly feel comfortable saying I am not going to automatically report you to federal authorities. I'm going to take your complaint and I'm going to work on it. And that'll be the extent of our experience. I think that's okay to clarify. Sure. I would never want us to act like we step into the realm of advising or controlling people's interactions with federal authorities. So just to help clarify that, if that makes sense.
Look, what about doing a walkthrough of what happens when you do come and tell us?
Oh,
this is what happens.
Sure.
And then
yeah.
Just by the sheer fact that you're not going to be asked about documentation.
Yeah, that's true. I've never asked anybody about their documentation.
Right. So this is what comes when you. This is what happens when you come and do it.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions about that process?
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
Joaquin and I would reiterate that, like my 15 years in law enforcement, I've never asked for somebody's documentation or their status.
Yeah.
Right. I'm usually looking for some type of identification so I can identify who I'm talking to. But I don't really care what that form of identification is, as long as I can positively identify somebody. But we never in 15 years have asked for anybody's paperwork to show their residency status.
And I think that would be an illustrative example, that would really help address people's concerns. Go ahead.
I think early on in some of these conversations, we were talking about having these held in a language other than English. Are we looking at, doing this in English? Are we looking at hosting the conversation in Spanish? And then have we gotten the what the translation would look like?
You want to take that one?
I haven't gotten that far yet.
Okay.
Certainly, certainly upon request, the city would do Spanish and ASL. We can preemptively make plans to do that. I would need to check the budget if it's a proactive preemptive piece.
I think I may have quipped at one point that I would just do it all in Spanish.
Oh.
Yeah, I think we were kind of both along the same lines, and then.
But I think this would be an example if there's either an appetite and or capacity financially to do that. Dubbing it in Spanish like city council meetings are done via smart.
We have headsets too, and so it would just be a matter of having the interpreter. Or are you thinking of actually holding the event in Spanish and inviting Spanish speaking providers?
Yeah, I think that was one of the initial conversations, but I'm just thinking we should even if it is, like translating live in Spanish, I think there needs to be, an opportunity for people to be able to receive this information in Spanish as close to real time as possible.
And I also think if it's gonna be broadcasted and recorded, as previous town halls have been, that it's be accessible later in Spanish. as well.
Yes,
So they
I
have
would
an
agree.
English version and the Spanish language version available to the public. Any questions online?
You do have somebody, and I am sorry, let me move my thing around.
Whoever you are. go ahead.
It's okay. It's me. It's Kira. I was just gonna say I would support definitely having the resources in Spanish as well. But I think we might miss an opportunity to catch people who speak other languages if it's strictly in Spanish. And they're not the only ones who maybe need the information right now, because we have Ukrainian citizens that, maybe need it as well. And just putting that out there.
As true as that is, I will say it is a large community and probably constitutes some great majority of the folks that we hope to target. But I think your point is very well taken care of. What are your reactions to that?
I was just sitting here thinking about budget and trying to figure out how to make that happen. And we're certainly not in the habit of just asking for free interpretation out of respect for the communities and the interpreters. But let me do some explorations and see what we can
I have some
accomplish.
thoughts that I would like to talk to you about.
Okay, great.
This topic.
Thank you. Okay, yeah, let me see what I can do and I'll talk to Robert.
But taking a step back, I mean, any general reactions to this newly scoped direction? Not totally different, but I think more explicit about our goals.
I think it looks great.
Yeah. Have we confirmed that these organizations are willing to participate? Or
No.
is just the list of invited participants? And have we kind of narrowed down like when we want to try to shoot for hosting this event?
I don't want to speak for you,
Go
but
ahead.
we'd originally talked about getting these folks into one conversation, kind of plan and talk about things. There's a lot of folks that we're juggling here, so I don't know who would be actually on the stage, who would be, maybe there's a large number of folks who would be like in your town hall, our town hall, but the one that you so generously organized, might be out in the hall. So that hasn't happened yet, but now that we have now we've waited since January, now that we have city attorney guidance, I think we can move forward with that anytime now. With the consent of the commission, of course.
I wonder if anybody would want to volunteer to help me.
Yeah.
You want
I
to
would, yeah.
narrow that scope?
I'll
You
be
too?
happy to,
Okay,
yeah.
all right.
We'll do that.
And Kira too, I see it.
Robert, Kira, Joaquin, Poppy.
I can't speak a lick of Spanish, so don't ask me for that, but I can help in other ways.
I've been playing your organization skills. I got those.
Okay, anything else?
I can say muy poquito, okay?
Poquito.
Yeah. Momento, por favor, that's my favorite.
Very conversationalist there.
Any other reactions? Thank you all for those who volunteered to help. Okay. MMIW, we talked about this last time.
We did.
I don't know anything else there is to say other than, we had a productive conversation with Kimberly Fitzgerald. We are still looking to engage the tribal roundtable at some date here, undetermined as yet, but hopefully soon. Per Commissioner Strathy's recommendation, we're not going to show the sugarcane film because it's been shown so many times locally in the last few months, and so still kind of revisiting what that sort of engagement and outreach looks like on these issues. Kate, do you have anything to add there, or Gretchen too, for that matter?
No, that's perfect.
No, just it was shown multiple times at Salem Cinema with their Oscar nominee series. And then it was shown at the Confederated Tribes of the Grand Ronde. Not sure about the Siletz tribe. So there were already several viewing opportunities around the region. And the Salem Cinema viewing was like in the last month. So there were many showings very recently for the film if the community was interested. So that, and it's available on not Apple TV, but Hulu and
Disney. So there's options for folks to watch that. If we ever wanted to do just like a blurb in our newsletter, potentially we could recommend a couple of like the other documentary that Celine was looking at as well, if we wanted to recommend some educational material, but I don't think it's the right time since it's already been pretty well it's been shown pretty well in our community right now. So
Thank you, Kate. I think the only thing the only caveat I would put to that would be just we'd have to dress that language up pretty well. I mean, it is a very difficult film to watch, and so I wouldn't, not that you suggested this, Kate, but I wouldn't want to just drop it into a newsletter and have people watch it just like that. So
Here's the link.
yeah, but that's not what you said, Kate. I know that, but just want to say that out loud too. So any questions about that? Kate, it's back to you. Community engagement.
okay, so we had a meeting a couple weeks ago and we were talking about the language of the survey and how we could address people feeling like they belong and a sense of belonging. Because, and I'm going to try to explain this, but Marianne was a little concerned with feedback last year that some respondents, you would ask them, do you feel like you belong? And they would say, yes, they felt like they belong, but they also experienced discrimination. And so the questions might not have been exactly right. And I think I'm explaining that right, but I'll let Gretchen in the group also provide feedback. So to address some of the language and make it a little clearer, Marianne had done a lot of research about what are other communities doing with belonging surveys and how are they phrasing questions, what questions are they using. She found a couple surveys that had somewhat comparable questions and then proposed a few. So we looked at those and then we looked at the language and just talked through it. I don't think there was any real decisions necessarily, but just giving her feedback as she ramps up with her class. So I think we're making progress. Gretchen, we can probably bring that back into this forum next month for review. But we do need to look at the list of community partners and have everyone look at the list and see if there's anything to add, if any community partners have changed. And then we need to invite them to an information session. If they don't come, that's okay, but we can send out a link to the session replay afterwards. But that will give them a heads up of what are we doing? What is the survey? When is it coming? What are some of the questions? We're asking if Marianne could be there to answer questions as well. And then that's a pretty short session. We don't want it to be any longer than 45 minutes, and the majority of which would be Q&A. And then we're just looking at like, how do we send this out? How do we get graphic design, which I think was done by the city last year? I'm happy to do that in Canva. It's not that hard. I can use what we did last year and just update it. So we're making great progress, I think, in the committee. And then we meet again, I believe, Gretchen, is it the 26th? I was just looking at the email.
You're right, the 26th.
Okay, so we meet again on the 26th. Does anyone have anything else to add that I missed?
I had a couple of questions for you and for the group. So I was unable to go to this meeting again, this last meeting, but I got the draft of the survey that I'm looking at now, Kate, and there's a lot marked up. And stop me if this is too in the weeds and I should text you about this or something, but it's kind of hard for me to follow what they want us to do with this. There's a lot of highlighted things. What's next for this version of the survey for the committee?
Kate, would you like me to try to help?
Yeah, I'm on my phone. I'm just pulling it up so I can see that view as well.
Those of you that are Community Engagement Committee would have gotten the updated version of the survey, which came updated after the last committee meeting. Yellow represents some changes that have been made, and what's green?
New section, not finally.
Just kind of wants to highlight that we don't want to finalize that part until after the class has a chance to update it. But if the rest looks acceptable to the group, we'd be moving forward.
Okay.
If that helps.
And forgive me the digression, probably not the best use of this time of this meeting, but I just wanted to ask and clarify in advance of the 26th.
Is it possible to get a copy?
Yeah,
I'm gonna try to make it to this meeting. I wasn't able to make it to this.
Thank you for reading my mind. And Kate, I was actually thinking about mentioning that I'm not confident that we'd still be in a great position to take substantive changes to the survey at the next full HRC. I think we'd be in a better position to take the changes in time for working on them at the Community Engagement Committee, which is March 26th. So based on Hope's good question, I'll go ahead and forward the draft survey to everybody on the commission. So even if you're not on that committee, don't hesitate to lob questions and comments to myself or Kate, and we can go from there.
I'll take it a step further. Historically, what we've done is, as things ramp up, we kind of have a mini full session at the Community Engagement Committee. We've done that in a couple of years in the past. We did that when Kathy was chair, when I was, we did that. So it kind of gives us another hour or so, I think like an hour and a half to really sink our teeth into the survey before we approve it. And it also gives Mary Ann and her students some breathing room as well. So it's something to think about if folks are available on 26th and are interested in coming.
I'll go ahead and send the committee's invite to everybody this time, just in case you find yourself interested and available.
If that works for you, Kay, I don't want to.
Yeah, it'd be great. Thank you.
And then the only other thing I wanted to say was for the list of community partners, and again, I don't know how to use anything, but I couldn't edit the document very well. I could get into it, but I couldn't add things. And there were some people we'd reached out to last year that weren't on the list this year. I just wanted to make sure that we had as complete a list as possible. So I wanted to flag that for when we.
Do you have like a template for like reaching out to people that just gives like a short blurb about what the community engagement survey is?
We did last year, I think.
Yeah.
We could tweak it. If you found the one from last year, I'd be happy to provide edits, and then that way people can just fire off that template to their network of folks.
Okay.
Kira.
To piggyback off of that question, I came in after the surveys last year. So what does the community partnership look like? Like, do they just pass out surveys to anyone, or what does that look like?
It looks really different. It hasn't been, there's no one answer, I think last year was, I would probably say one of our more robust years in terms of outreach. And what that looked like last year was, there was, I think it was 4 or 5 in-person partnerships with community-based organizations and our faith-based organizations. So we actually went out into the field, spent time with folks, and either had physical copies where we physically helped them complete the form or sat with them or answered their questions in real time, and or gave them the ability to complete it online in front of us. And so, which is our preferred method because we have a much more robust snapshot of what their experiences are, but of course, happy and willing to facilitate physical surveys. So that's one form of engagement, and I don't know what the committee is planning to do this year, but maybe I would imagine something very similar to that. We did May Day last year. We went to a Micronesian church last year. We did a Pride event. No. Oh my gosh, it's funny how things slip away. I don't remember all of them, but there were several of them. Again, for target community, we did a lot of, we always do an over quota for our in-house community to help get city leaders like Councilor Brown, there's clear data around that demographic in particular. And so we always do that over quota. And we also do a lot of in-person events. At least 2 last year we did, where we actually went out and served people in person. In addition to that, we had a lot more robust Spanish language outreach. So in addition to the May Day event, it looked like reaching out to CBOs who sent things on to their listservs. I think my employer, Capacas, I think reached like 3,000 people that way, and we had the largest Spanish language survey completion that we had ever in the maybe 5 or 6 years we had. So
Yeah.
it's not great, but it's improving, and it looks something like that. So, Kate, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to say that I don't think we're at the point where we're going to reach out to community partners quite yet. And when we do, we can invite them maybe from the city or on behalf of the Human Rights Commission to that info session first. And then we can send out like the official invite when we're ready to launch the survey, and maybe have those personal connections for that part. But I don't think we're ready for the full invite yet. Like, hey, we're the personal connection invite part. But what we're just looking for in the meantime is for everyone to think about what are some of those in your circle, what are some of those community-based organizations, or what are some of those communities that that might not be on that list right now, and to think about those and fill them in. And so that is currently the request. And then if anyone has suggestions or recommendations on what we could share to help inform those community partners about this survey. So like Kira's question is helpful, just really giving background information. That would be helpful too. So just if you have specific questions or you have some feedback on what you think they'd like to hear, that would be helpful as we build out that presentation. And then I think there's a doodle poll as well. We're not requiring everyone to show up to that information session. But I think we're going to try to find a time where it works for the most amount of people. And then it's just optional for folks to attend.
I will say the information session is a great idea. I think a good way to get information straight to people in the community, but also later in any outreach that we do to our community partners.
I saw an online form. Is that form going to be optimized to use both screen readers and voice dictation software?
The Qualtrics survey meets those accessibility standards to the best of my knowledge. I don't speak to Mary Ann, but
That's my understanding.
it's important.
But being able to use a voice dictation software to navigate through?
That is my understanding, yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions for Kate or whomever else? Great. I always love this time of year when we talk about our belongings. Okay. I'm next. So we have reached out to the 10 members of the Disability Rights Task Force, all of whom I think have accepted.
Yes.
And our round of applause. No, I would just Kelsey, please do not applaud me. Please do not. That would be very uncomfortable. But our first meeting is
April
the
21st.
21st of April. And we had originally thought it was kind of a compromise date because 8 of the 10 could come, but we actually now have heard that everyone can be in attendance. And so we're looking to set goals. Everyone who has applied has provided their hopes and dreams for the task force. So we'll kind of have an introductory meeting. I said this in the outreach email. I'll say it to you now. I'm not totally wedded to this, but this is a goal, which is to have our recommendations prepared for the commission and council by December. So that gives us 7 meeting times, 14 hours. How can 14 hours of discussion? And so, yes.
I think we need to expand it.
Yes.
And I have 2 reasons.
Yeah.
One, in developing capacity within the community, leadership capacity within the community. There's a tendency in smaller cities to burn out the groups they have involved. You're on what, 3 boards and commissions? Yeah. So in developing capacities, getting more people involved and committed to the process of being involved with government. The other is because with what we're going to have to do over the next 7 months, I could see us creating subcommittees that are very highly specialized. Like if we're gonna look at how people are interacting with the built environment, which is land use planning. If you have non-land use planners involved in that and going through that process, there's going to be more teaching than there is actually going to be reviewing. I could see we'd have a task force on mobility and transportation that would look at sidewalks, buses, parking, which are all critical issues. I could even see a small subcommittee looking at emergency services and how to improve that. Because, you know, I mean, I'm sure you have seen, but not everyone has seen that, you know, police training actually, or non-training in dealing with people with disabilities has, at least on the East Coast, caused death. And so I could see getting more that this not being able to be done by 10 people. That's my piece.
I appreciate that. I think I have maybe 3 comments. The 10-person number was, I arrived at for 2 reasons. One, so for those who maybe don't know, you know, as chair of the commission, I don't have a lot of power, but one of the powers I have is I get to appoint people to bodies. And, you know, we have this application process. I would say, I think it was, when it closed, I think we had just over 20 applicants to this task force. I will say humbly that everyone who I thought was prepared to contribute was appointed. And so, by and large, so in other words, it wasn't, I was holding fast to a 10-person committee. I agree with you that there needs to be more perspectives. I will say everyone who is appointed either has a disability, takes care of someone's disability, or has a long history of being working in disability advocacy in public service. So some of those are people who are direct service providers, some of those are professional experts, some of those are nonprofit leaders, others are commission members. And almost every ward is represented, which is also an important thing for me. And a very diverse, I won't divulge nature of disabilities, but a very diverse range of disabilities are represented. So I feel pretty good about that. Frankly, the thing that really bothers me is that I'm the only person of color on the task force. And I think that there are certain experiences as people of color disabilities that are going to be lost. And Gretchen and I, and then Robert actually and I had a conversation about postponing appointments by even more than a month while we did more outreach. And I will say, at this time, if membership expands, it will be to incorporate those voices and perspectives, and to do that as soon as possible. I've reached out to certain advocacy offices at the state level as well to help find those folks, because the truth is they didn't apply. These people in these communities didn't apply, and so we're limited to those that applied in the outreach that we performed, which was what we had the capacity to do. And so know that I'm conscious of that, and that I hope to remedy that as soon as I can. And again, if the committee or the task force expands, I hope it is in that way. I hope that it's soon. And so actually, if one of the things I was going to ask was if anyone knew of folks who were interested in lending their voices and perspectives, to please contact me as soon as possible as I search for folks to really volunteer their time in this way.
You know, will it be acceptable to identify people who, let's say, don't have disabilities but have subject matter expertise, perhaps, like if we do take a focused look at land use planning, being able to bring in some planners on a subcommittee that aren't necessarily members of the task force, but.
So I appreciate the question. So and the second thing I was going to say, I think I said there were three. The second thing I was going to mention was the short answer to that question is yes. I think that if it's the wish of the task force to bring land use planners to a session, I think, I don't want to speak for the task force that hasn't even convened yet, but I think that would be acceptable if capacity allowed. I will say though, and I want to stress the importance of this, which is that the task force is, by function of its short-term nature, the folks who are involved supposed to produce high-level recommendations to council and commission. And so I don't want to speak for the task force. That might look like, one of Jeffrey's hopes is to have a disability rights commission in Salem. It could be to have a ADA compliance board like we do for policing, or like an appeals board. It could be a lot. It could be take a lot of forms. It could be, that we have this TSP review that's coming up. It's going to be multi-annual transportation review. What are certain things that we could be talking about in terms of how we build our roads, make our sidewalks and streetscapes accessible, and public life more accessible, which I know is top of mind for a lot of folks. It probably won't be, Jeffrey, having half a dozen subcommittees and doing all that stuff. I think given the staffing capacity and just the nature of a task force as a recommending body or a body that's going to push recommendations will probably be high level, notwithstanding efforts like the one that you mentioned, which is bringing land use planners in and talking as an informational basis to answer the questions that the task force has as it exercises its role of making recommendations by December. So go ahead.
I think that bringing in the land use planners and others will be a result of hopefully what the task force recommends.
Sure, but I actually think I could happen even the next few months to answer questions should the task force have.
To answer questions,
Yeah.
but I think to get that detailed in analysis of what we need to put a proposal forward.
Yeah, to be able, I'm sorry.
You know what I'm saying?
To be able to tell the city council.
Yeah.
The comprehensive plan, the community plan, the neighborhood plans, and the development code all need to be revised to reflect A, B, C, D. To be able to get to that recommendation, you either have land use planners involved, or you have an awful lot of bringing other people who are not land use planners, kind of like instruction up to a certain level to be able to make those recommendations.
Well, I just want to caution too, Jeffrey. I mean, we can take this offline too, but I just want to caution that the purpose of this task force is to invite as broad a swath of the disability experience in Salem into conversation to make recommendations either to council or to the commission and kind of the city generally. That is the mandate. We have, I'm sure, each of us things that we would like to see in those recommendations, and I think there may be even not a lot of agreement on that from the task force. But I do want to kind of caution, well, we want to do this and this and that, and tell council do this and this and that, because really it'll be a collaborative approach for the task force. And so, but to your point, yes, I mean, hopefully that we can have the time and resources available to us to make informed recommendations to council and the commission and the city, and that is the intention of the task force, including. Any other questions or comments? It's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to it. Was that a question?
No.
All right. Thank you all for that. Allowing, yes,
Another question about that topic, but could I steal 30 seconds?
of course, still more.
So Lance, Lieutenant Didi,
Yeah.
he's got to leave. He's got another engagement. He's gonna fill in my
Oh,
absence
thank you.
for the April meeting. And so I will meet with Lance tomorrow. We'll go over the gathering of information, the preparation of the report for the April meeting. I'll be back shortly after your guys' next meeting. And so I just wanted to make sure the commission was aware. That's why Lance was here. He wasn't here to audit me. Hopefully. My performance appraisal for the year is done, so I think I'm safe.
I thought that was enough added, gonna add to my FBI file.
And to add to what Robert's saying, I finalized the 2024 vice crime report, so you guys are aware. My bosses are looking at that now, so I hope to have that to you guys soon. So
Thank you, Lieutenant. And just for the edification of the commission, Lance Didi, the lieutenant, is filling in Deb's old role. So AC Aguilar is obviously took her new position last year, and so we got Robert and now. So just to kind of connect.
Moving on with justice.
So thank you for being here.
Yes, thank you.
And thank you in
Yes,
advance for
appreciate
your role.
yeah, thank you. You guys.
I'm gonna.
Oh, but you can't be in a suit and tie.
Oh,
Not always.
oh, come on.
Just for you special folks.
Thank you. Okay.
Alrighty. So the LGBTQIA plus committee, this round, I think we met a week ago, 2 weeks, somewhere around there. We continue to work on the healthcare forum. And for those of you who missed the update last round, that is a community-driven event focused on strengthening communication between healthcare providers and the LGBTQIA plus individuals, as well as their families, partners, and allies. So we've been spending quite a bit of time on that. We're aiming for June during Pride Month. We've identified healthcare agencies and we've sent out a letter to invite them to potentially participate as either a panelist or a resource table. We've asked that they get back with us by March 24th. So hopefully we'll be able to give an update on that at the next committee meeting. Moving on from that, we have 2 new members. We have Judy McCord and Autumn. Yay! So very excited. And then we also have 5 interested members who will be hopefully joining us at our next meeting as guests to kind of see if it's a good fit for them. So very excited about that. And I think that's all I have, unless anyone has any questions.
A thriving committee. Love
Yay!
it. Any questions for Kira? Commissioner Lynn, go ahead.
Okay, so the process review task force had a meeting on Monday where we finalized our process and procedures form. And now we're just doing some little tweaks to it and approving some edits, and then it will be ready for review at our next full meeting. And I will lead us through a presentation of them. I just want to say huge thank you to everyone on the task force. It was truly a team effort to get here. And I think that everyone will be pleased to see the outcome, and I look forward to sharing that with you all. Oh, any questions?
Well, you know, before I entertain questions, I just want to reiterate that Ilana has done a great job as chair. Kelsey and Kira, Hamadi previously, and Robert and I, you know, we've been working since when did we start working on this?
Was it June? June, July, August?
Really?
Yeah, because it was right after.
Golly. Well, you know, we've been working on this for more in excess of half a year now. And just really couldn't be more grateful for these wonderful folks who have volunteered additional time to really, I think, set the commission up for a lot of success moving forward. Standardizing practices, getting procedures and norms and rules that will help us be in greater and better and more sustainable service to the public. And so thank you all for your efforts, and we look forward to receiving your feedback at the next commission meeting in April. So I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions then, but if anyone has questions now, I mean, feel free to ask us, but or Commissioner Lynn. All right. Fresh?
I just have one thing. Joaquin gave you a little foreshadowing near the beginning of the meeting. We are looking for ways to be more efficient with limited staff time and the work on our plate. And one of the ideas that's been sort of voluntold to me is stop with the meeting minutes. Given that we have the recording available and Jeffrey's good counsel to create a transcript, I didn't want to just do that to y'all though. So I wanted to bring it as that's an idea that's on the table, and I would be interested in your feedback on if that hurts you or if that's okay. Like I could begin it effective in April and see how that, I don't want to surprise anybody who might be depending on those. I'm confident I'm still going to be writing down tasks, you know, and who's doing what and when, but it would just be that I wouldn't be producing the minutes anymore. So I wanted to get feedback and input.
As a person who does those minutes, I fully support that idea.
You're giving more time back in your busy schedule, Gretchen. I support it.
My suggestion to make that work, that we undertake a process by which whoever is speaking identifies themselves.
Yeah.
So that people don't have to
We
think.
used to have that in place. I'm not remembering exactly when, but it was when I first joined. Yeah, because we had an ASL interpreter. Commissioners.
We did it.
I'm completely blanking on her name, so yeah.
Well, Krista Gallagher was on the.
There we go. I was like, it started with a K. I remember her name. Yeah.
That's a good one. Thank you, Jeffrey. And maybe an edit for our rules and procedures.
That's exactly what I thought.
Yeah.
So I have the community calendar. I only have 2 events this month, but as usual, if anyone wants to join in, because I know Kate and Celine always share, it's fantastic. So for capital events, March 15th is Cherry Blossom Day, which is celebrating spring and Japanese culture in our state. So there is, free and open to the public events there. And I have the link. And then March 20th, I have the West Salem Peace Walk at 7. And as usual, we just meet across from Annette's on Edgewater. So, but I know we have other peace walks if those are your
Yeah, March 22nd is Highlands. We typically meet at Fred Meyer, but instead we'll be meeting at Highland Park at 4:30. We changed up the location just for this month. There was like a violent incident that occurred at the park a couple weeks ago, so that's why we changed the location.
Thank you. It's just more like down the street.
Typically there's 2 different routes depending on how many people come.
But I mean, in the street or?
In the neighborhood, so in the Highland neighborhood.
Okay, but in the street or in the sidewalks?
We usually walk on the sidewalks.
Any other events? Okay. Any member remarks and announcements about something other than what was covered in the agenda?
I have one. Sadly, I have one. So it has been finalized. I will be going away for college. That is not going to be in Salem in August. So that will be, July will be my last meeting. So
We're gonna miss you.
I'm gonna miss you guys too. I've been here for like 3 years. It's insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, it's gonna be weird to not have this, but yeah. So,
Builded your life.
yeah, yep. Give
And then
her some
come back
applause
and
to that
rejoice.
voice. Yeah.
Well, we wish it weren't so, but we wish you best of luck. And we'll have more, I'm sure, comments in July.
Yes.
But thank you for that.
And I'll be asking you, I don't even know how to resign, so we'll be figuring that out.
That's cool.
Yeah.
My only remark is that we wish Sergeant Dowd a speedy recovery.
Oh, thank you.
I hope it goes well.
I appreciate it.
Do everything the doctors tell you to do, don't do what they tell you not.
I promise. I'm well practiced at this.
Hearing nothing else, it is 7:50 and I bring this meeting of the Human Rights Commission to a close. Thank you all and have a good night.